Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. It is a great day to be an American, and I am suddenly in the mood to film. I think a lot of anxiety has left, and so today we're going to talk about my winter recommendations. I have 5 books. I pulled all of these from my personal shelves. 5 books I have read that I will recommend that have winter as a definite character in the book. And then I have 5 books pulled from my shelf that, in a perfect reading world, I will read this winter season. Now, I say that, and I'm looking at the 5 I will read, or I want to read, and there's only one that isn't super thick. So if I get to them, great. If I don't, they will be waiting for me in July. So let's do the red ones first. First up would be The Ninth Daughter by Barbara Hamilton. This is the first book in the oh my gosh, Abigail Adams Mysteries trilogy. How did I forget that? And this one definitely takes place in winter. Winter is definitely a unwritten character in this book. It is set in pre-revolutionary Boston, and I absolutely loved this book. You meet Abigail, you meet James, you meet the kids, you meet Abigail's preacher father, her siblings. It's definitely cold. I love this series so much. I have only read the first book. I am savoring the other 2 because I know when it is over, I will be very sad. And they're very hard to find. So if you ever see them, I highly recommend picking them up. I will read you a little bit of the back. 1773. The Massachusetts colony is torn between patriots who want independence from British rule and loyalists who support the king. At the center is the educated and beautiful Abigail Adams, wife of John Adams, a leader of the Sons of Liberty, the secret organization opposing the crown. When her husband is accused of murder, she must use her keen prowess to prove him innocent. It is delightful. It is very true to John and Abigail, to who they were in life, and I cannot recommend this enough. So, next up was a book club read in this year, and it begins in October. It runs about a year. That is The Ice Swan by Janelle Zielinski. First of all, this cover screams, it just screams winter. The title, the ice cold blue, all of it. And parts of it do take place in winter. I loved this book. I will link my review for it down below. Book club discussion is still up on Discord if you're interested. Overall, book club absolutely loved this book. So, this is a very easy recommendation. Next up is Counterfeit Love by Crystal Cadell. This is the first book in the Hidden Hearts of the Gilded Age series. This one takes place in Cincinnati. It opens up on the 31st of December, 1883. And this is historical romantic suspense. Takes place in Cincinnati. The series follows a trio of what becomes Secret Service agents So it follows the men and not the women. The series takes place in different parts of the Midwest. And this was gripping historical thriller. The faith in here was excellent. Winter is most definitely a character in this book. Without the winter season, this book would not be nearly as taut and tense as it is. And I loved every word of it. Next up is another book club choice. This was the January 2024 kickoff book. Unfortunately, this discussion happened before Discord and I couldn't move the conversation over. So the notes, the Discord book club chat isn't available anymore. But as you can see, all my tabs are still in the book. That is Veiled in Smoke by Jocelyn Green. This is the first book in the Windy City Saga. This takes place before and after the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871. I will link this review down below as well. This book will give you Little Women vibes. This book will give you the Book of Job, the mystery, the faith, the characters, the topics discussed in here are all amazing. And I fell in love with Jocelyn's writing in this book. This is my second Jocelyn book. I didn't really like the first one. Admittedly, the vast majority of this book takes place in fall, but you know, I still think this is a great winter read. Those Little Women vibes are very strong in this book. And I didn't pick Little Women. That's just a very easy. It appears on a lot of winter recommendations lists. But Veiled in Smoke, I think, is a great book to read in winter. That's when I read it. That's when book club read it. And it just fit beautifully. And last up is the only author who appears twice on these recommendations. And that is To Try Men's Souls by Newt Gingrich and William R. Forstchen. This is the first book in the... Oh, it's a trilogy. What is the name of the trilogy? I'll put the name of the trilogy down here. This is set... Let me give you the exact date. Here we go. It opens up December 25th, 1776 in Pennsylvania. This is a fictional account. And I will tell you, I sobbed at the end. This is beautifully written. There are very few novels. I realize on this list I have 3, but there are still very few novels set in the Revolutionary period of American history. I don't know why that is. It is a very rarely chosen topic for historical fiction, and it makes no sense to me. I've said that before. I'll say it again. But regardless of your political spectrum, this is an excellent book of Revolutionary War historical fiction. It will move you. I loved it. I absolutely love this book. So those are the 5 books that I pulled from my shelves for winter recommendations. Next up, the 5 books I would like to read this winter season. First up is a book that appeared on the books I want to read in 2024 list. In my head, anyway. And it is appropriately named The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. This is the first book in his King Arthur trilogy. And I will read you the back. In the Dark Ages, a legendary warrior arises to unite a divided land. Uther, High King of Britain, is dead. His only heir is the infant Mordred. Yet each of the country's lesser kings seek to claim the crown for themselves. While they squabble and spoil for war, a host of Saxon armies gather, preparing for invasion. But no one has counted on the fearsome warlord Arthur. Handed power by Merlin and pursuing a doomed romance with the beautiful Guinevere, Arthur knows he will struggle to unite the country, let alone hold back the Saxon enemy at the gates. Yet destiny awaits him. So this is the first book in the Warlord Chronicles. I have all 3 books in the trilogy. I have heard this leads towards the grimdark of the Arthurian retellings versus the, let's say, romantic bent of Arthurian retellings, and I'm okay with that. This is probably much closer in tone and description of the era in which Arthur would have lived than high medieval chivalrous knight romance that he gets involved in so much. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I also have this on Audible, which may come in very handy, and especially since I know there's a lot of Welsh name pronunciation in here. And I will forewarn you that this is really one of the only sizes this is available in. The print is extraordinarily tiny. So I'm also not going to appreciate that this is a mass market paperback, and I am going to bend the spine on this book. Yeah. Okay. Next up is a Nordic thriller. I do not know how winter recommendation lists get made without Nordic thrillers on them, because if there's any setting in fiction that just screams winter, it's Nordic. So that would be The Darkness by Ragnar Johansen, or Jonathan. I undoubtedly just butchered that. I will read you the back. The body of a young Russian woman washes up on a remote Icelandic beach. She came looking for safety, but instead she found a watery grave. A hasty police investigation determines her death as suicide, and the case is quietly closed. When Detective Inspector Hulda Hermansdotter of the Reykjavik police force is forced into early retirement, she is told she can investigate one last cold case of her choice. She knows which one. The Russian woman whose hope for asylum ended on the dark, cold shore of an unfamiliar country. Soon, Hulda discovers that another young woman vanished at the same time, and that no one is telling her the whole story. Even her police colleagues seem determined to put the brakes on her investigation. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Hulda will find the killer, even if it means putting her own life in danger. Spanning the icy streets of Reykjavik, the Icelandic highlands, and cold, isolated fjords, The Darkness is an atmospheric and complex thriller from Ragnar Johansen, the award-winning author of the internationally best-selling Airy Thor thrillers. I am very much in the mood for this as we speak. I am very, very much in the mood for this. Okay, the next 2 are book hauls you haven't seen yet. They were both from the library bookstore. And the first is Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. And it is a beautifully immaculate. You may have seen this. Yeah, this was in a third quarter haul, which I will link down below. It's immaculate. I've never read it. I am looking forward to it very, very much. I know it fits well in Anne's 2025 challenge. I will link Anne's video down below. It's definitely a translated work. It's definitely a little, chubby little boy. But everyone says it's fantastic. So, there you go. Okay, this one I know was a recent haul. Haven't talked about it yet. That is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. It is a hardback in perfect condition. This one is set in Alaska in 1974. And it is looks like it is a survival crime thriller. I always think of Alaska as cold. If it's not cold, it's full of, giant mosquitoes and you're preparing for winter. So it just screams. It always screams winter for me. And we always think of Alone as winter. I read The Women this year by Kristen Hanna and fell in love with her writing, her storytelling, her ability to write a, intricate, tight plot. So I am completely sold. I'll read you the first couple of paragraphs. Ernst Albright, a former POW, comes home from the Vietnam War changed and a volatile man. When he loses yet another job, he makes an impulsive decision. He will move his family north to Alaska, where they will live off the grid in America's last true frontier. 13-year-old Lenny, a girl coming of age in a tumultuous time, caught in the riptide of her parents' passionate, stormy relationship, dares to hope that a new land will lead to a better future for her family. She is desperate for a place to belong. Her mother, Cora, will do anything and go anywhere for the man she loves, even if it means following him into the unknown. At first, Alaska seems to be the answer to their prayers. In a wild, remote corner of the state, they find a fiercely independent community of strong men and even stronger women. The long, sunlit days and the generosity of locals make up for the Albrights' lack of preparation and dwindling resources. But as winter approaches and darkness descends on Alaska, Ernst's fragile mental state deteriorates and the family begins to fracture. Soon the perils outside pale in comparison to the threats from within. In their small cabin, covered in snow, blanketed in 18 hours of night, Lenny and her mother learn the terrible truth. They are on their own. In the wild, there is no one to save them but themselves. Again, I really, really want to read this. Shocking. I know I bought it, so obviously. Okay, last up. I believe this is the second book in the series. See if they list the series. They do not. It's very rude. Anyway, that is Valley Forge by Newt Gingrich and William Forshen. I have not read this one yet. I love that cover. Look at that cover. It screams winter. We all know what happens in Valley Forge. I will read you the flap. It is the winter of 1777, and Washington's battered, demoralized army retreats from Philadelphia. Arriving at Valley Forge, they discover that the repeated requests for stockpile of food, winter clothing, and building tools have been ignored by Congress. With no other options available, the men settle down for a season of agony. For weeks, the dwindling army freezes under tents in the bitter cold. Food runs out. Disease festers. The men are on the point of collapse, while in Philadelphia, the British, joined by Alan Van Doren, the loyalist brother of dead patriot Jonathan Van Doren, live in luxury. In spite of the suffering and deceit, Washington endures all, joined at last by a volunteer from Germany, Baron Frederick von Steuben. With precious few supplies and even less time, von Steuben begins the hard task of recasting the army as a professional fighting force capable of facing the British head-on, something it has never accomplished before, and in the process, changes the course of history. It is a turning point in the Revolutionary War. It is a turning point in colonial history. It is a turning point in American history. And I cannot wait to read this. It is probably appearing on my December pile of possibilities. It's very highly likely it's on my December pile of possibilities. I'm not going to lie. I've been wanting to read it for a while and haven't, so I shall. So those are my winter recommendations. You've gotten a glimpse into what I'm thinking of reading, what I have read. So I hope you have found something new or something has piqued your interest. I could have added a lot of books from the library. I may do that in a Bookmas video, do a library poll of winter themed books that are on my radar. We shall see. And if you have a recommendation for me, please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.